Thank you, and I appreciate the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce for inviting me and having a chance to say hello and then chat with many of you in the room. You know, oftentimes in the public discourse, there's this zero-sum game that is perceived to exist between the public sector and the private sector. And the fact of the matter, it's only through kind of collaboration and partnership that we get things done. I know that from my time as mayor in Worcester and working with the business community on a range of issues, many of them similar to the challenges and opportunities that you have here in Cambridge and have worked to build here in Cambridge. But and I want to just talk about that just for a few moments. Before I do, I also want to acknowledge the partnership that exists between the executive branch and the legislative branch, and many of my colleagues and Governor Patrick's colleagues in the House and Senate are here. And let me just say, in a democracy, you know, there is supposed to be robust debate, discussion, and disagreement from time to time. But at the end of the day, we are very proud of the work that we've been able to do with the legislature over the last 3 years on a whole variety of fronts. You know, people need and want change, but reform is change. And working with the legislature, we have passed a whole series of reforms, all of which are incredibly important. But I know just this past week, a week ago, on Martin Luther King Day, and I know how much the city of Cambridge and the people who live and work here value this, but on Martin Luther King Day, Governor Patrick signed a really landmark piece of legislation on education and addressing the achievement gaps that exist in communities in many of our cities where we have concentrations of poor people and kids who English might not be the primary language and higher areas of special ed. And members of the House and Senate who are here, in particular Chairwoman Marty Walsh from the House Education Committee, all were incredibly productive and just leaders working with Governor Patrick in getting this legislation passed, which is allowing Massachusetts to compete, and I think continue to lead on the issue of education reform. And so I just want to give them a round of applause and ask you to do the same. And I think it's important, and everywhere I go, I like to talk about what we've done together, because sometimes it's that disagreement, real or perceived, that seems to get a lot of all the attention in the media. But the hard work of governing, which so many of the local officials who are here in this room can appreciate, is going on at the State House and addressing the tough problems that we have. And in addition to the Readiness Project, which led to this landmark education legislation, the various reforms of the ethics, pension, transportation reform, one of the things that we talk about around the state, and which Governor Patrick said was a major priority of ours early on, and again working with the legislature, was life sciences and biotech. And I talk about what's gone on here in Cambridge, but also my home city of Worcester, where we have intellectual capital, smart people, in a spirit of innovation. People came together from the academic community, from the VC community, from different sectors of government, and from the academic institutions 30 plus years ago, and said, let's create this fledgling industry called life sciences and biotech. And we've become the world leader, and the epicenter of much of that work is here in Cambridge. 30 plus years ago, next to UMass Medical School, the city of Worcester, the same entities came together and said, in what was a fallow field next to Worcester State Hospital, said, let's invest in this new industry called life sciences and biotech. And Alexandria, in the biotech park today, is the second largest taxpayer in the city of Worcester with close to 3,000 jobs. And so we believe we can replicate that story throughout the state, and the life sciences and biotech bill that we passed with the legislature is doing just that. Even in this economic downturn, these are areas that we're growing and adding jobs, and you know that story in Cambridge because you stayed at it and nurtured and continued to support that industry. And we want to continue to do that in areas of clean energy and green tech. Again, many of the same ingredients, intellectual capital, VC, a spirit of entrepreneurship exists, and we're growing that cluster again in an economic downturn. Information technology, we see companies like Google and Microsoft expanding here in Cambridge and in the greater Boston area and Massachusetts, other companies like Akamai and Harmonix and others. So we want to continue to fuel and support that innovation economy in a variety of ways, and this education legislation is a big part of that. So Keep up the good work and keep up the partnership. It is so important that the different levels of government work and collaborate together, but at the end of the day, we only build the type of economies that we want and need in our cities and towns, in the Commonwealth, is by having a dialogue and having opportunities to seek partnership and opportunities in gatherings like this, where that conversation begins, and those in a micro way that is so important. So I want to thank the Chamber for inviting me and having a chance to say hello and talk with many of you. I'll have you know, I've been talking to a number of the municipal officials. I'm getting a pretty big list of requests back at the State House, so I'm getting a lot of constituent work here as well, but that's our job, and happy to do it. So thanks for having me into the Leaders 2010. Look forward to your man for leadership continuing.